Greetings. The Adrian Dominican Sisters welcome you to another presentation of A Sister Story. I am Sister Peg O'Flynn, and today we're having a conversation with our Sister Mary Soher, who is presently residing and in ministry in San Rafael, California. So from dreary Adrian, I don't know what it's like where you are, to San Rafael, let's welcome you, Sister Mary, and thank you so much for your willingness, especially with your busy schedule. But you know what? Ask a busy person to do something, then you'll get it done. So let's this be your 30 minutes to tell your life. Now, it's a little easier for you because you're a tad bit younger than some of the ones I've done. So you might not have as much trouble. But anyway, we do like to start at the beginning. People are very interested in your early life, family life, all of that. So why don't you just begin, and on occasion, I'll just butt in and, interject my questions, etc. Okay? So it's all yours.
You can keep me moving.
Good.
Well, I was at my sister's house just recently, and I was getting rid of some old yearbooks from high school because, how long do you need to hang on to those? And I remembered one of the things that I wrote, you only live once, but if you live it right, once is enough.
Good.
So even though you said I haven't lived as many years as some of the sisters, they've been busy years. So I was born in San Francisco, California. I am the oldest of three. Okay. And we are March, April for our birthdays. My mom and dad were a little older when they got married. My mom's actually originally from Chicago. My father's from San Francisco, and they met in Chicago at a church young adult group meeting. Mm-hmm. They got married, and before I was 7, we'd moved 11 times.
Oh my!
My father worked for Phillips Petroleum Company.
Oh, okay.
And he was in the business side. And so every couple of years, he'd get a message saying, you can pick up your paycheck on Monday at the following site. And then off he would go, and my mother would get to pack up the house and the 3 kids and move us. So before I was 7, we'd lived in California, in Oklahoma, in St. Louis, and back and forth between the various locations. So then we landed in Oklahoma and lived there for approximately 10 years.
Wow.
Growing up, our sports were swimming and Girl Scouts and piano lessons and Boy Scouts for my brother. I began high school in Oklahoma, and I finished my last 2 years up in Kansas City, graduating from Blue Valley High School in Stanley, Kansas. I also learned how to drive in Kansas, down in Kansas City, out on the back roads, narrow 2-lane roads on a stick shift car. Wow. And I went back after either a 10 or 15-year high school reunion. Everything that was farm fields is now houses. It's just amazing, the growth. Mm-hmm. We lived at 108th Street. School was at 159th, and it's solid houses now. So things are changing.
Wow, for
where
sure.
We go. So I graduated from high school in Kansas, and I ended up choosing to go to Trinity University down in San Antonio, Texas. I chose it because I was fascinated by the idea of a communications degree. In high school, I had the opportunity to work on a couple of our school musicals and school plays, but always behind the scenes.
Okay.
So, as I told you earlier, this in front of the camera is not quite my choice. I like behind. And when I was looking at going into theater or production, something in the theater area, I realized that in theater, you open and either you close that night or you do the same thing for years and years and years. And I didn't know if that would really appeal to me. And then I looked at television. And television, like newscasts and programs, there's a structure, but the content constantly changes. And I've really got interested in that aspect as well as the technology. I love technology, and I love people. So
How unusual.
television was a great combination of the two. So I graduated from Trinity University in San Antonio in 1987. And my last semester there, I only had 12 hours that I needed to take. And they were Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday classes. So I had originally thought, well, I'll just take long weekends at the beach. And I was talking to one of my communication professors, and he's like, well, did you take an internship yet? And I said, no. And he's like, go get an internship. So I got one at the local television station. And then after graduation, the internship turned into a part-time job. And then by August, it was a full-time job at the television station. So I worked there for 5 years in the studio, running cameras, working my way into the director's booth, directing weekend newscasts and the morning newscast, and then eventually becoming the production coordinator and doing the scheduling of the events, and working with both training our crews and making sure that projects that we worked on managed to get through the whole communication thing.
So all behind the scenes venture. Could we just stop there for a second and go back to your growing up? Now, I know you were constantly uprooted and had to go someplace else, but the family was together. Describe the family life, the family values that you feel have stayed with you to this point. I know I met your dad. He was a dear when he was here in Adrian. Yeah. Anyway,
my parents were awesome.
Yeah.
They approached, we're all cradle Catholics, but they approached Catholicism from two very different endpoints. My mom was from Chicago, Irish-German background, the middle child of 3 with two, an older and a younger brother. Her father was a convert from Lutheran to Catholicism. And there really was a sense that, you listened to the priest and you did what the priest said. They were engaged in the parish and school and ministry and that type of thing. My father's from San Francisco. And once again, strong in the faith, but there was more of a sense of, the church is made up of people, and people don't always have the right idea. So it's made of good people that try and do well, but just because the priest says something doesn't mean. And so there's this sort of light tension that I learned this years later, but growing up, we had a parish school. So 1st through 6th grade, we went to the parish school, and it was run by Ursuline nuns out of Paoli, Kansas. And they were lovely. But 7th grade, I would have gone to the public school. And there was a Catholic middle school down in Tulsa. So we grew up in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. And in Tulsa, there was a Catholic middle school, high school. But it was on a 2-lane road 50 miles away. And we had one car. But my mother was trying to figure out how we would get me to school down in Tulsa while my brother and sister, who are just, 1 and 2 years beyond, younger than me. And my dad's like, you're nuts. Mom's like, we have to do this. And Dad's like, oh, no, we don't. And I mean, literally, it put a huge tension on the marriage. And they ended up, I think, speaking with our local pastor, who was a good old boy from, southern part of Oklahoma with a large family. And he's like, you know what? God's going to make it work no matter what you do, but you need to be safe in your family. So, I ended up going to the public high school. And then, of course, CCD was the big thing back then. So my parents practiced what they preached day in and day out. My mom's big thing was you never go to bed angry. And so, of course, it's really hard when you're only, 13 months apart from your brother and your sister. But we still managed to enjoy each other growing up. And we did a lot of things together because it's just easier to carpool everybody to the same spots. The other thing I would say growing up is when my dad ended up staying in Oklahoma for 10 years, from 6 to 16, he was with Phillips Petroleum Company. And there was a lot of international guests that would come in. And my parents believe in hospitality. And Bartlesville didn't have a whole lot of restaurants type of thing. It was a small town. So a lot of times we had dinner guests in the evenings and on the weekends. And we met people from all over the world, and everybody was as welcome. So there was a gentleman from the Ivory Coast. There was a gentleman from Norway. There were people from across the United States. And as we got older and learned how to behave at the dinner table, we could stay and listen to the stories. And my dad was a great person at drawing people out. And my mother always made whatever the meal was work for people. So it was just, a really, really wonderful time growing up, even, having to be the big sister to a little sister and a little brother.
Sounds good. Very good. All right. So then you graduated from high school.
Went on to college and down in San Antonio, graduated with my communications degree there, and then went to work at the television station in San Antonio, Texas, doing everything like, as I said, newscasts and editing commercials, but also running camera for a Spanish dance show and working on muscular dystrophy, MDA telethons, 24 hours on the clock. I think one of the most interesting things was working on the Miss San Antonio beauty pageant, the Miss Texas beauty pageant, and the Miss California beauty pageant.
And what was your part in that?
I was the stage manager, which meant I was out in the audience telling the stars or the host where to stand, when to move, when to stop, when to go to break, and hearing what was going on in the truck, making sure that the camera people had everything that they needed. So I was sort of like the director on the floor, listening to the director back in the production truck.
Okay. Well, where did you run into sisters? How did you hear about the Adrian Dominicans?
So after working for 5 years in San Antonio at the television station and really hitting a glass ceiling of not having any more movement, I took a job out in California, down in the Los Angeles area, working for a company that did satellite video conferencing. And that worked for a couple years until there were starting to be problems with the company. And one of the things that really helped me getting through the difficult times, both in San Antonio when I was working and then also in the Los Angeles area, was I really enjoy daily mass, and I also appreciate that quiet time of adoration. So in San Antonio, when I was trying to figure out what do I do next with my life, I signed up for the late night adoration hour. So on late night Thursday night at 2:00, when people were leaving the bars, I had set my alarm to get up, to go to church for an hour, to sit in that holy silence. And then in Los Angeles, I was able to get to an evening mass after work. And I got fired on Halloween out in Los Angeles because the company wasn't doing well. But, if you get fired, you can collect unemployment. So that's a really big help. I called my mom and I said, hey, I got fired. She's like, start signing up for unemployment. It takes a while to kick in.
May I ask what you got fired for?
There was a struggle it was a small corporation.
Okay.
And there was, it's a combination of finances and management. And it had been difficult working. And, a lot of times I try and think that I can fix something. And as I've grown in life, I've realized there's certain situations, no matter what I do, I can't change.
Good.
And I was going to be willing to quit, but instead I got fired. So, but it's you
learn some. Yeah.
You certainly do.
Yeah.
And, at the end of the year, November, December, I was going to go back into television because I love doing that. But not a lot of people hire at the end of the year. Budgets are strapped and that type of thing. So I was looking at my so-called bucket list. And I'd always had this thought of being a sister, but I never thought it would work. One of the things that my parish priest said growing up is that, God made me to be happy. And if I can't be happy, I'm not good to anybody. And I didn't think being a sister would make me happy because I had this really small box idea of what sisters did and who they were. But I had
sisters, was it the other congregation that had that school? You never got drawn to that order? when you were in
No,
grade school? Okay.
that was a teaching degree. And,
Okay.
they taught, and really, I thought so the only thing sisters did was either teach or do something in healthcare.
Got it.
And
Okay.
I see blood and I faint. So what good would that be? And the only thing I like teaching, believe it or not, is swimming. I've taught everybody from a 6-month-old in a parent-child class to a 92-year-old. But anyway, I'm like, okay, let me go find out about sisters. So I walked into the vocation office of the Diocese of Orange in Orange, California.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I met Sister Rena Capilazzo.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
And Sister Rena sat and listened to me with this very sweet smile on her face and everything, and gave me some information and encouraged me to take some steps. And as I left, her secretary came up to her and said, "Would you like me to start a file on this young woman?" And Rena said, "Oh no, we'll never see her again."
Oh, have you reminded her?
She told me this the day of my first profession.
Did
She never said
Oh.
anything. Every time I would come in to talk to her, she would invite me to meet other sisters or connect in these different ways. Her secretary kept saying, "Don't you want a file?" And Rena's like, "No, it's not going to happen."
Oh, ye of little faith. Okay. Uh-huh.
So I met the Adrian Dominican Sisters in the southern part of California, and visited some mission groups. I was able to attend one of the assemblies where they elected Sister Barbara Stanek. Of course, in the meantime, I had been meeting other sisters and religious in the Los Angeles area. But I really felt sort of pulled towards the Dominican Sisters of San Rafael and then the Adrian Dominican Sisters. And, it just eventually, it was like, as my brother said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "There's, sometimes in the church, there's not that much space or room for, women." And I said, "True." I said, "But, when you're looking at institutions that constantly need to be, full of God's Spirit, the Holy Spirit, you either work from outside or from inside." And I just felt called to work within the blessings of a religious community.
Good.
I love people, and I need that help and accountability, because it's easy to get busy and to start trying to go down my own path as opposed to the path of the Spirit. And I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about our religious life, that ongoing reminder of personal reflection, prayer time, communal reflection and prayer time, the discernment process, the talking, and the talking and the listening. So in August of 1996, last century, I moved to Adrian from the Los Angeles area. I bought a coat for winter because I hadn't needed a winter coat from my years in Texas and Southern California. I have a great member of my crowd. Her name is Barb Kelly.
Yes,
she has the sharpest wit. As she said, we're a company because two's company and three's a crowd. So we're a company of two that went through the process of formation. And I don't know what else. Do you want me to go through that process?
No, that's fine. So you've been in for 25 years, around about, right? Yeah. Interesting. Unbelievable how time goes, isn't it? At least looking back on that whole situation. Interesting. No, so what I'm interested in now is, you made profession, you went to Adrian, you're in formation, and now you have a ministry. And you're from a generation that you didn't receive a little card and you weren't told where to go. I mean that nicely from our leadership. We were missioned, through the superior. Now that didn't happen to you directly. You certainly were blessed by leadership, but you went about finding your own ministry, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So tell us about some of your ministerial. You've been at universities.
Pretty much I've been enjoying our whole Dominican charism of study. It's a marvelous lifelong learning thing.
Right.
So in formation, my second year as a novice was full-time study. And I did that at Catholic Theological Union, CTU in Chicago. And I got about halfway through my degree. But then it was like, as you first go out on mission, the idea is it's sort of up to you to tap into that sisters network of where you might find your first ministry. So one of the things that drew me was going back to somewhere warm. Because, I'd been up in Michigan and Chicago and St. Louis for the last 3 years in formation, and I love warm weather. Now, my friend Barb, she loves anything under 70 degrees, and I love everything over 70. But there was an opening down at Barry University in Miami, which is one of the schools that we founded. And I had the opportunity to go down there. It was actually an opening in the television lab in the communications department. So it was working with communication students. But one of the smart things that Barry did is in television, one piece of electronic equipment can cost $50,000. So if you put that in an academic budget, you've just wiped out your entire budget. But the television lab was under IT, information technology. And, to set up a classroom with just 25 computers, with just the desktop and the monitor is $50,000. And then you add the tables, the chairs, the software, the wiring, blah, blah, blah. So for them, $50,000 is no big deal. So IT, and so I was part of the information technology division as opposed to academic affairs. And so constantly seeing the way that they were learning about what are the upgrades, what are the things that we can do to make learning easier, to make connecting with the students. Barry's also very international with students from all around the world. Mm-hmm. And then, so I did 2 years in the television lab there. And then there was an opening in campus ministry. And I was living in community with two of our other sisters, Arlene Scott and Sarah Fairbanks. And Arlene was the director of campus ministry. So I used to chuckle that at the dining table, we had the viewpoints from faculty, which was Sarah who taught, administration, Arlene, and staff from me. And it's always interesting to see the same topic at the university, but having 3 different perspectives of it.
Mm-hmm. You're each touched differently, but you're touched by the situation.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So then I worked 2 years in campus ministry. And, one of the funny things is all the skills that I used to put together a dance show or a telethon or a beauty pageant all get repurposed to put together a weekend retreat, a praise and worship night, a memorial service. And so where I thought that, the skills that I had wouldn't be welcomed in religious life, I was so wrong. You just take the things.
Transfers.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so there was a great 2 years working in campus ministry with the team there. But then I took a little bird walk, as we say over here in California. There was an opening in corporate and community relations, and they're the ones that do the big parties and fundraisers for the university. There's a golf tournament and a gala, and you connect with the university with folks outside,
right,
and you learn. You offer the opportunity for people to come into the story. And some people come in by sharing their time. Some people come in by sharing their talent, but you can also come in by sharing your treasure. So you learn how to ask people for money because the people you're asking for are so deserving of it. And so to say, please come be part of our university mission as the way that, we help young adults find their purpose in a prayerful, communal service study context. And being present among Sister Gina Laughlin, Sister Peg Albert, and they are just amazing people when it comes to responding to the needs of students and reaching out and connecting with the community.
You've had some wonderful mentors, as you mentioned them, and I'm sure you did at the other universities as well. Yeah. Is there one in particular or one situation in particular that really has touched you, transformed you, been significant?
You know, it's really, when I was thinking about this question ahead of time, and there's 3 women that really helped me look fresh into religious life. The first one was Sister Isabelle Jordan. She was one of the earliest sisters that I met.
She taught me in 4th grade.
Did she?
Yes.
Well, I don't know how she was when you were in 4th grade.
Oh, we loved her, yes.
She was one of the most gentle, gracious people I'd ever met. And I'd already started to meet other sisters from other communities. And, just like you're asking me to, talk about myself, she asked me to share my story, just like you did. And it was such a refreshing invitation. She also moved to Adrian about a month before I did.
Okay.
She was, suffering from bone cancer, but what an incredible woman that just really invited me into sharing my story, and she shared hers. And she was living with Maureen Keeler at the time.
Okay.
One of the things that we did when I was going through formation was to have a mentor, and I had Sister Anne de Lourdes out here in California.
Yes.
Anne is probably one of the strongest introverts you would ever meet. I am probably the furthest on the extroverted scale. But when they say opposites attract, they do. Yeah. And just learning how to appreciate each other's differences was just
wonderful.
And then beautiful. I think, one person that just continues to inspire me is Dusty Farnan.
Oh.
Dusty can see beyond the present.
Yes.
She gets information and she's like, who else would benefit from this? So her networking, her connecting to other people, nothing ever lands in front of her and just stays there. It's thought about, it's processed, and then it's sent back out into whatever connection she can. And I think that's so important as we move through life.
That's right. She's a great woman, and I'm just delighted to hear you speak so highly of her. She's very special. As we kind of wind up here, do you have a favorite scripture saying?
I would say right now the one that has lived with me through most of my Dominican vocation is actually from St. Catherine of Siena.
Okay, good.
And it's that quote about God is nearer to us than water is to fish. I'm a Pisces. I'm a swimmer. I love the ocean. But sometimes you don't realize the air all around you, but when you're in the water and you can feel it all over you, and that to me reminds me of the closeness of God. And then, fish actually breathe water through their gills and get the oxygen out of it. So they even get that water even closer into them. So that's that image of who God is for me. This incredible being that surrounds me, moves through me. And then I need to remind myself to take that time and recognize that presence of God.
You exude energy and enthusiasm and so much life. I always ask myself when I engage with people like yourself, what do you do to slow down? What do you do to just take some time to get re-energized?
Well, it's a combination of things. I like to totally chill out in front of HGTV and Food Network. I'm totally into cooking shows and baking shows. And of course, house fixer-uppers.
Yes.
Moving as much as we did. My mother did a lot of work on the house and we helped with her. I also enjoy reading. I get wonderful suggestions from our sisters, but I also like science fiction and romance and, of course, mystery. And it's finding that balance,
very good.
I enjoy walks in nature by myself, but I also enjoy it with one other person.
Right. We both are living through this history time of the pandemic. Can you just give us perhaps one thing that you become aware of about yourself, about the world, about whatever, through this experience of this past year and some months?
I would say that I have realized just how blessed I am to live in community. I live out here with the Dominican Sisters of San Rafael.
Who do you live with? I want to see if I know any of them.
So I live with Sister Carla Kovac, who's their current prioress general.
Okay.
Sister Patty Doherty, who is a history professor and leads the Fanjo study abroad with the colleges and the universities.
Mm-hmm.
Sister Joan Hanna, who just a couple of years ago finished her, she was in charge of the preschool at the local parish. Sister Raya Hanlon, who does spiritual direction and works at the Santa Sabina Retreat Center. And then Sister Emmanuel Cardinale, who also has been in elementary school education for forever, was a principal, but now is, quote, semi-retired, because we know we sisters never quite retire, but helps out in their development and communication office. So, but to live with people close by, to have a large social bubble is a huge blessing.
Yes.
To realize how much nature reminds us of life and living, and the ability to let nature heal us and soothe us and inspire us type of thing is really important. Our sisters that have been in quarantine or lockdown, or that live alone and have found the joys of the internet and shared all their experiences on the internet, has been one way that, they've been able to reach out. And I've been able to take a lot of the suggestions and things that people found and add it to my campus ministry newsletter.
Oh, nice.
Share it with our students and share it with our campus community as well. So that's been a great sharing of riches that has also happened during this pandemic.
Okay. As we bring to a close this most energizing half hour, where might the Spirit be leading you at this time? Do you have a sense?
I have a feeling that the Spirit has surprises in store for me, and I am open to wherever I'm being led. One of the things that I want to just make sure I talk about is I love our Dominican family. I have been part of, here in the United States, the growth of the Dominican High School Preaching Conference. It's originally founded by Sister Pat Grady. I've been the director of that for the last 10 years, and it's been going for 20. We've expanded to a college preaching conference, to an organization that reaches out to young adults called Dominican Young Adults USA, that is part of an international Dominican youth movement. And I've had the opportunity to travel to Colombia, to France, to Portugal, to gather with other young adults and the Dominican family around the world. So I would say that what gives me life is our ongoing collaboration with our Dominican family, with our sisters here in the U.S., to have our sisters in the Philippines, our sisters in the Dominican Republic. We really have a global worldview. Mm-hmm. And I think that is, it's a blessing to bring to the people we're around. And the other thing that I've really enjoyed is these last 5 years have been a great experience of direct ministry with students. But I also enjoy our direct ministry with our sisters. There is so much energy when we as Adrians connect, whether it's by Zoom or our mission groups. And I just look forward to being of service to our sisters as we in the congregation continue living through very interesting times.
Whether or not you want a fan or prayers. Is that summer program going to go on this summer?
The college one is being held virtually.
Okay.
But not the high school one. Because, the highlight for the high school one is meeting the sisters. And so I'm really hoping in 2022 we'll be back.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Mary Soher, thank you ever so much. And one thing, I don't know how to swim. So whenever you come back on campus for an extended amount of time, you can take me under your wing. But thank you so much for all that you're doing for the Dominican families, that you're doing in the name of our founders, in the name of Dominic and Catherine. You have touched many lives. When I think of the youth that you're in front of and teaching, and you teach mostly by your example and your enthusiasm. Oh my gosh, your love for life. You must have gotten that from your father, huh? Yeah.
From both of them.
Yeah, from both of them. Well, thank you ever so much, and bless you on your continued ministry, and a special hello to the women that you live with. Tell them how lucky they are and how lucky you are that you live with them. So thank you so much.